I want to wish you a happy new year. I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. However, I try to take good care of my health. I think that's part of my job as a painter, to make healthful decisions so that I am able to continue devoting my life to this thing. I go to the gym 4 days a week, 5 days a week sometimes, only for 20 minutes. And I have a very specific set of workout routines that I do. A little bit of cardio and a little bit of lifting. I don't run anymore. I'm 6'3", 240 pounds. I have a hard time stopping when I start running. And in fact, the last time I jogged in Central Park, someone came over and asked me if I needed assistance. So I don't run anymore. I go to the gym. Then I come down here to my studio and I do a series of stretches that I've done for about 35 years. I do them in front of the paintings that I'm working on. They get my muscles limber and perfused and ready for my day. It's important if you're working in oils to have lots of ventilation. I keep my big windows open year-round regardless of the weather. I also wear surgical gloves. If you're using solvents and paint thinner and certain pigments, you need to get used to wearing those rubber latex surgical gloves, which you can find in any drugstore. My father-in-law is a surgeon, and he turned me on to compression stockings. They're basically socks that come up to your knees, which are very tight, and they keep your legs from feeling fatigue and from swelling if you are on your feet all day long like I am. They help a lot. I have a very comfortable chair which I sit in when I need to sit and look at the work that I'm doing. I keep lots of fresh water and bowls of pistachio nuts in my studio for when I want to snack. I eat relatively healthy, although when I go to steakhouses I'm grossly overserved. But I try to eat a fairly balanced diet. I could always do better. If I'm going to be sanding in my studio, like I do a lot, I will make sure that I wear a dust mask. Anything that blocks particles in the air is important. And I wear comfortable shoes, also very, very important. I wear size 14 Crocs. They are loose, they get plenty of circulation, they're easy to put on and easy to take off, and best of all, they're rubber, so they repel all of the slop and the gunk that goes flying around as I'm working. The other thing that I would put in the category of good health is I have a pretty good relationship with the fact that I am a narcissist. You have to be delusional to do what we do. You have to repeat the same behavior over and over and over again, always expecting a different outcome. That's the definition of insanity. And certainly the last thing you want to be as a painter is sane. So I am a friendly, grateful narcissist. And I'm okay with that. Painters face pressure to grow and change and develop their work. That's art school nonsense. I believe the opposite. I think that there's great power and beauty in repetition, in doing one thing again and again over a long period of time until you get really good at it. And no one talks about that. I've created a successful career and I really only have one or two moves. I've just learned to do them well, and I try to extract the maximum amount of poetry out of those one or two moves. My compositional template, my palette, even my footprint, the way that I see the world is relatively singular and unchanged. I set up very limited parameters for myself. I narrow my perspective as much as possible, and then I can riff within those very narrow walls. I don't like when people ask me what the next theme of my paintings will be or what issues I'm going to address in the next body of work. That implies the kind of self-aware consensus seeking that I hate in art. That's the problem I have with a lot of painting that I see in galleries, is that it's too smart, it's too globally aware. It's doing too many things. I don't want the entire globe in a painting. I can get that from the New York Times. I want one person's creepy world compressed down to the size of a thimble and then shot at me at high velocity as violently as possible. That is going to give me the greatest lucidity as the viewer. It's no fun to be the smartest person in the room. I never am. There's always someone that's smarter. I'm not saying make dumb, uninformed paintings. I'm just saying speak from your heart. Speak as personally as you can. I think that a painter has to identify exactly what it is they're trying to communicate. What are you saying through your work? It's very fashionable to claim my work is open for interpretation, or my paintings are about whatever you want them to be about. That's bullshit for press releases. I'm talking about clear, resolute intention. What exactly are you doing in your work? I'm a firm believer in not forcing painting to do too many things. And whenever it gets too complicated, I park my butt under a tree and I watch a leaf fall out of the tree. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. There doesn't need to be anything more than that. That's enough. For as long as I've lived in New York, I've been obsessed with a sculpture in the Metropolitan Museum called Ugolino and His Sons by Jean-Baptiste Carpeaux from 1867. And I've made a bunch of drawings of this. What transfixes me is the effortless way in which he makes one thing become another thing. Brittle, impervious marble becomes muscle and hair through sheer insistence. He bends the laws of nature to fit the laws of art. And the subject matter is worth noting here in that Ugolino has been condemned to starvation and is trying to resist the temptation to eat his children and grandchildren. And what I love about this is it encapsulates the very act of creation, that creating something is not about nurturing it, but about killing it. It's about destruction. Art is a triumph over nature. Nature has to be pushed completely out violently in order to make room for something else. Marcel Duchamp said it best. He said, you have to kill the father. I believe that painting celebrates life by cheating death. And the reason that I use thick paint is to exaggerate the laws of nature, things like viscosity and mass and gravity, things that we understand in daily life. And then I can introduce the lie of art, things like atmospheric perspective or fictive space or artificial light, so that you go from looking at something to looking into something. The landscape must be pushed completely out violently, as if you were shining a flashlight into the woods in the middle of the night. You don't get one broad snapshot of everything. You get a very focused, concentrated view of one specific point. That's what I'm trying to do in my paintings. So I think in order to create something, you have to first kill something. One of my jobs in the late 80s was working for a pre-Columbian art dealer. He wasn't actually pre-Columbian himself. He was just a guy from Virginia, but he specialized in pre-Columbian and ethnographic art. One of my favorite examples were these Colima dogs, some of them 2,000 years old. And I was especially seduced by their color. And I've remembered that, and I'll mix red oxide with a little bit of yellow ochre, and then bring in cobalt blue in this case. Deepen and dull the color. These dark colors did appear in the Colima dogs because of the prevalence of manganese in the Colima soil. Next, I'm going to bring in a little titanium white to lighten the value, giving me a beautiful kind of smoky pink color. Next, I'm going to mix cobalt blue with titanium white and then introduce a little bit of alizarin crimson, bringing it to a nice violet color. This I can use in the Colima color, if you will, to give it a bit more spaciousness and cool down the temperature. This would be a wonderful combination next to like a citrus yellow or a green. One of my closest friends here in New York is a famous actor, and he and I drove one afternoon out to a regional theater in New Jersey to see a full-scale production of Can-Can the musical, while our wives worked back here in the city. You're thinking that's the gayest thing since the volleyball scene from Top Gun, but it was astoundingly good. I sat there in the audience helpless as this production, seamlessly lit, beautifully cast, perfectly directed, came to life and thumped around on that stage like a big dragon. It didn't need anything from the audience. It was a full, breathing, living thing. I saw Gilbert Gottfried a few weeks after that on stage. I love stand-up comedy. And the same experience unfold. Whenever an artist is a consummate professional, having done the same thing year after year, perfecting their craft to the point of near perfection, the whole thing takes on a life of its own and thumps around on stage. It doesn't need a single thing from anybody. It fully comes to life. When a work of art is less than that, I'll find that I need to tap my foot along to keep the beat in a concert, or I feel like I need to laugh nervously at a comedian if it's not so good, or if I'm looking at a painting that's not so great. I feel like maybe they could have put a little more raw umber into this color. Maybe it would make it a little better. When something is fully dimensionally alive by a pro, it doesn't need a single thing from me. That's what I strive for. I saw the same thing in our Edward Redfield painting in the Philadelphia Museum of Art a couple of weeks ago. This landscape painting by the New Hope School painter, the Pennsylvania Impressionist Edward Redfield, just simply came to life as a living, breathing organism. That's how I feel about my own paintings. If I take my foot off the throat of this living thing, even for a second, it could get up and walk away. So I always have one foot on the throat.